"Hey, that's my plate," I said, trying to keep my voice calm even though I felt my face getting warm. Ashley didn't even look at me. She just smiled toward her husband's family and said, "This seat's for my sister-in-law, not you. Move." For a moment, everything went quiet. The sound of forks and chatter stopped. Even Mom looked down at her napkin like she wished she was anywhere else but here. My throat tightened, and I felt the whole room watching me, waiting to see what I'd do next. It was Thanksgiving, a time that was supposed to be about family, laughter, and gratitude. But in that moment, all I felt was small, like I didn't belong at my own family's table. Ashley had always been like that. She knew exactly how to embarrass me without raising her voice or saying something outright cruel. Her tone was sweet, but her words hit like knives. And every time, I told myself not to let it get to me. But this time it did. I looked at the empty seat she was saving, a perfect spot at the center of the table, right next to her husband and his sister, Lauren. She smiled at Lauren, saying, "You'll love sitting here. You're family now. Family now." The words echoed in my head. I wanted to say something, to remind her that I was her real sister, that I'd been there for her since we were kids, through every heartbreak, every bad decision. But the lump in my throat stopped me. I just stood there, holding my plate like a fool, while my sister-in-law gave me an awkward half-smile that only made things worse. Mom whispered softly, "Just sit anywhere, honey." She tried to sound gentle, but I could hear the discomfort in her voice. Even she wouldn't stand up for me. So I nodded and moved to the far end of the table. The chair was too low, the corner too dark. I stared at my food, suddenly not hungry at all. I could hear them laughing and chatting, passing dishes, sharing stories. It was like I wasn't even there. I poked at my mashed potatoes, pretending not to care, but every word from the other end of the table stung. When Ashley laughed, it sounded fake. When Lauren called her sis, I felt my stomach twist. No one looked my way. Not once. And in that moment, I realized something painful. This wasn't about a seat or a plate. It was about power. It was about how Ashley always needed to be the center, always needed someone to look smaller next to her. That night, I didn't make a scene. I didn't argue. I just kept quiet, my hands shaking under the table. But deep inside, something shifted. I knew this wasn't just another one of her mean jokes I could shrug off. This was the moment everything changed between us. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe. A few weeks before Thanksgiving, Ashley called me out of the blue. Her voice was cheerful, almost too cheerful. She said she was hosting dinner at her new house this year and wanted everyone to come. It was her first big Thanksgiving as a married woman, and she couldn't stop talking about how perfect everything would be. She told me about the new dining table she ordered, the fancy silverware, and how Ryan's mother and sister would be joining too. She mentioned their names several times, slipping in little comments like, "You'll love Lauren, she's so put together," or "Ryan's mom is very classy, I really want everything to be perfect for her." I could hear the excitement in her voice, but I could also hear something else. That tone Ashley always used when she wanted to prove something. I'd heard it my whole life. Whether it was grades, clothes, or relationships, Ashley always had to be the best, the one everyone admired. And even now, as adults, that part of her hadn't changed. Still, I tried to be supportive. I congratulated her on the new house and told her I'd bring my famous pumpkin pie. She laughed and said, "Oh, you don't have to bring anything. I've got it all covered." But the way she said it didn't sound kind. It sounded like she didn't trust me to be part of her picture-perfect dinner. After we hung up, I sat for a while thinking about it. It had been a long time since we'd spent a holiday together without some kind of tension. Our family had been through a lot, but somehow, I always ended up being the one on the outside. Mom called a few days later to say Ashley had been planning this dinner for. "She just wants it to be special," Mom said softly, like she was trying to convince both of us. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I wanted to believe that this Thanksgiving would be different. Maybe Ashley had changed. Maybe we could just sit down as sisters and enjoy being together again. In the days leading up to it, Ashley kept sending photos in the family group chat, the decorated living room, the place settings, even the menu. Every message was filled with little hints of how proud she was of her life. And while everyone else commented things like, "Looks amazing," and "You're such a great host," I just stayed quiet. I didn't want to say something she'd twist later. Still, I showed up on time that day. I wore my favorite sweater and even brought a small gift for her and Ryan, a framed photo of us from when we were kids, hoping it might remind her of simpler time. But the moment I stepped inside her house, I felt it. The way she looked me up and down, the quick forced smile. It was the same old Ashley. The competition wasn't over. It had just moved to a bigger table. Button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. When I reached Ashley's house that evening, everything looked perfect, almost too perfect. The lights were warm, soft music played in the background, and the smell of roasted turkey filled the air. The dining room was set up like something out of a magazine. A long polished table with gold plates, linen napkins, and tall candles flickering in the center. It was beautiful, and I could tell she had worked hard to make everything look expensive and impressive. Everyone was already there: Mom, Dad, Ryan's family, and a few of their friends. Laughter filled the room, and Ashley was moving around like the star of her own show, checking on dishes and pouring wine for her guests. For a moment, I stood in the doorway, taking it all in, trying to find my seat. That's when I noticed something strange. Every seat at the main table was taken, except for one small chair at the far end, next to the kitchen doorway. It looked out of place, like it had been added at the last minute. I looked around, hoping maybe I had missed another spot, but no, that was it. Ashley turned and saw me standing there, holding my coat and dessert box. Her smile was wide, but her eyes told a different story. "Oh, there you are. You don't mind sitting there, right?" she said, pointing to the little chair at the end. "The main table's for family." Her words hit me like a slap. For a second, I thought I misheard her. Wasn't I family? My heart dropped, and I felt my face flush. Everyone went quiet for a moment, pretending not to notice the tension. Ryan cleared his throat and looked down at his plate. His mother shifted in her seat. I wanted to speak up, to say something, anything, but my voice just wouldn't come out. I could feel my hands trembling slightly as I gripped the back of a chair. Then Mom leaned toward me and whispered, "Just let it go, honey. It's only dinner. Only dinner." That's what she said. But it didn't feel like only dinner. It felt like another reminder that I didn't belong, that I was just an afterthought in my own sister's life. So I forced a smile, nodded, and walked toward the little chair. The seat wobbled slightly as I sat down, the smell of the kitchen's dishwater mixing with the food from the table. From where I sat, I could barely see the candles or hear the jokes being shared across the room. I tried to act fine, pretending to fix my napkin or check my plate, but deep down, I felt something heavy in my chest. This wasn't about a seat. It was about being pushed aside once again. Ashley didn't even look my way after that. She just kept smiling, laughing loudly at something her sister-in-law said. And while everyone enjoyed, dinner started, and the sound of laughter filled the room. Everyone seemed comfortable and happy except me. From where I sat near the kitchen, I could barely hear what anyone was saying. The hum of conversation and clinking of glasses blended together into a dull noise that made me feel even more distant. Every now and then, I caught Ashley's voice, loud and cheerful, like she was hosting a talk show. She laughed at every little thing her sister-in-law said, making sure everyone saw how close they were. Plates of food passed from hand to hand, but by the time they reached my end, most of the dishes were nearly empty. I sat there, smiling politely, pretending it didn't bother me. After a while, I realized that no one had brought me a plate. Everyone else was already eating, their plates full of turkey, mashed potatoes, and gravy. I waited a few minutes, hoping someone might notice, but no one did. My stomach turned from hunger and embarrassment. Finally, I decided to help myself. I stood up quietly, smoothing my clothes and walking toward the main table. I tried not to draw attention to myself. I picked up a clean plate and started filling it with small portions, just enough to eat without looking greedy. But before I could even finish, Ashley appeared beside me. Her smile was tight, her voice louder than it needed to be. "Oh no," she said, snatching the plate right out of my hands. "This seat is for my sister-in-law, Lauren. You can eat later." Her words echoed in the room. Every fork stopped moving. The laughter died instantly. I felt every pair of eyes on me. My hands hung awkwardly at my sides, empty and shaking slightly. My face burned as heat rushed to my cheeks. Lauren looked uncomfortable, her eyes darting between me and Ashley. "It's fine," she whispered, but Ashley ignored her completely. Ryan's mother raised an eyebrow but didn't say a word. Neither did my parents. No one spoke. No one defended me. It was like everyone had silently agreed that keeping the peace mattered more than my dignity. I stood there for a few seconds, frozen. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing louder than the silence in the room. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Finally, I nodded slightly and forced out a quiet "okay." Then I turned and walked back to my seat, my vision blurry from the tears I refused to let fall. The laughter slowly started again, forced and uneasy. I stared down at the empty table in front of me, pretending to check my phone, pretending I wasn't shaking. My throat felt tight, and I could taste the bitterness of humiliation. That one moment, the plate, the silence, the looks, felt like a lifetime. And as the night went on, I realized that this wasn't just another one of Ashley's cruel games. This was something deeper, something meant to remind me that in her world, I'd never belong. Their drinks and stories, I sat quietly, feeling smaller with every passing minute. I sat there for a few more minutes, staring at the plate I never got to eat from. The laughter around the table sounded forced now, but Ashley didn't seem to care. She was back to smiling and showing off her perfect life, pretending nothing had happened. My chest felt tight, and I could barely breathe. I leaned over to Mom and whispered that I needed to use the bathroom. She nodded without looking at me, probably relieved that I wasn't about to cause a scene. I stood up quietly and walked down the hallway, but instead of turning toward the bathroom, I slipped through the front door and stepped outside. The cold air hit my face immediately, and for a second, I just stood there on the porch, shaking. Then I walked to my car, opened the door, and sat inside. As soon as I closed it, the silence hit me. No laughter, no clinking dishes, no fake smiles, just the sound of my own breathing. I tried to hold it in, but I couldn't anymore. The tears came fast, running down my face until I couldn't see clearly. I pressed my hands against the steering wheel and let it out. Years of being made to feel small, years of pretending her words didn't hurt. Every memory came back at once. The time she got straight A's while Mom compared my report card to her. The way she always got the attention at family gatherings because she was prettier or more confident. The times I helped her through heartbreaks, only for her to mock me later when I struggled in my own life. I was always the shadow standing behind her light. I thought about how I had walked into her home tonight, hoping things would be different, hoping she'd finally treat me like a sister instead of competition. But she hadn't changed at all. She still needed to put me down to feel tall. I wiped my face with a tissue and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, my mascara smudged. I looked tired, not just from crying, but from carrying this same pain for so long. That night, something inside me broke, but not in a bad way. It was like a wall that had been holding me back finally cracked open. I realized I couldn't keep letting her make me feel worthless. I couldn't spend my life trying to earn love from someone who enjoyed watching me struggle. I sat in that car for a long time, watching the warm light from the dining room windows. I could see Ashley moving around, laughing, completely unaware of what she'd done to me. I made a promise to myself then. I wouldn't play her game anymore. No more crying over her cruelty. No more begging for respect. I was done being her target. That was the night I stopped trying to be her sister and started learning how to be my own person. After that Thanksgiving night, I stopped trying to fix things with Ashley. For years, I had always been the one to reach out, to forgive, to smooth things over, but this time, I didn't. I didn't answer her texts or calls. And when Mom asked why I wasn't coming to Sunday dinners, I just told her I was busy. I wasn't lying. I was busy. Busy finally putting myself first. I spent more time alone, thinking about what I really wanted in life. Cooking had always been my passion. Ever since I was a teenager, I loved trying new recipes and making meals that brought people together. Ashley used to make fun of it, saying cooking was a hobby for bored people. But I didn't care anymore. I wanted to do something that made me happy. So I took a chance. I started a small catering business from my own kitchen. At first, I only cooked for neighbors, small birthday parties, and community events. It wasn't easy. I had to work long hours and save every penny. But slowly, word started to spread. People loved my food, and the compliments kept me going. Before long, I was catering local events and even small weddings. Each new job gave me more confidence. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. I didn't need anyone's approval, especially Ashley's. Meanwhile, I heard from Mom that Ashley was busy with her social life, parties, dinners, and constant pictures of her perfect marriage. But perfection doesn't last forever. From the little Mom mentioned, I could tell things weren't going as smoothly for her as she pretended. Ryan's business was struggling, and she was stressed about money. I didn't say much, but deep inside, a part of me knew life was starting to humble her. One morning, as I was preparing for a weekend event, my phone buzzed. When I saw her name on the screen, I froze. Ashley. I hadn't heard from her in months. For a second, I thought about ignoring the call, but curiosity got the better of me. I wiped my hands and answered. Her voice was cheerful, but I could tell it was forced. Hey sis, how are you? I heard you started some little food business. That's so cute, she said, dragging out the words like a compliment that didn't quite reach her heart. I smiled to myself. Yeah, it's going well. I've been pretty busy. She laughed lightly. Well, actually, that's why I'm calling. We're planning a big dinner party next month for Ryan's clients. And I was thinking maybe you could help cater it? You know, a little family collaboration. There it was, that same tone she always used, pretending to offer an opportunity while keeping me beneath her. But this time, I didn't feel hurt. I felt calm. I said softly, sure, Ashley. I'd love to. She had no idea that by calling me that day, she had set the stage. Ashley sounded so sweet on the phone, like nothing bad had ever happened between us. Her voice was calm, polished, the same fake tone she used when she wanted something. Hey sis, she said, dragging out the word sis like we were suddenly best friends again. I heard you started some little food thing. That's amazing. We're hosting a dinner next month for Ryan's business partner, and I thought maybe you could help with the catering. I stood there holding my phone, listening to her talk about the event. She went on and on about how important it was, how she needed everything to look perfect, how she couldn't trust just anyone to handle it. The whole time, I stayed quiet, letting her talk. When she finally paused, I smiled to myself and said softly, "Sure, Ashley. I'd love to." She sounded surprised, almost unsure how to react. "Really? Oh, that's great. I'll send you the details later. Just make sure it's elegant, nothing too simple, okay?" "Of course," I said. "I'll take care of everything." After we hung up, I sat for a moment, thinking about how things had come full circle. The same sister who once humiliated me in front of everyone at Thanksgiving was now calling me for help. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't doing this to please her. I was doing it to show her that I didn't need her approval anymore. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into the work. I planned every detail carefully: the menu, the setup, the decorations, even the little finishing touches. I wanted it to be perfect, not for Ashley, but for me. I wanted to prove, even silently, that I had built something real from nothing. I spent long hours in my kitchen, testing recipes and trying new dishes. Every time I got tired, I remembered that Thanksgiving night, her voice, her words, the way everyone looked at me. That memory fueled me more than anything else. When the day of the dinner finally arrived, I loaded everything into my van: trays of food, elegant platters, fresh flowers, and candles. My small team helped me carry everything into Ashley's house. She greeted me at the door, dressed perfectly as always, her smile as fake as ever. "Wow," she said, looking around at the setup. "You've really improved. I wasn't sure you could handle something like this, but it looks nice." I just nodded. "Thanks, Ashley. It's what I do now." As the guests started to arrive, I watched her float around the room, pretending to take credit for everything: the food, the presentation, even the decorations. But I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The guests kept complimenting my dishes, asking who made them, praising the flavors. Every compliment she tried to claim made her more uncomfortable. I smiled quietly to myself as I served the food, watching her struggle to keep control of the spotlight. She had no idea that I arrived early on the evening of Ashley's big dinner. Her house looked just as perfect as before: spotless floors, candles lit, everything in its place. She greeted me at the door, wearing a fancy dress and too much perfume. "You're early," she said, glancing at her watch. "Good. You'll need plenty of time to set up." Her tone was the same as always, commanding, dismissive, like I was just her helper. But this time, I didn't let it bother me. I smiled politely and carried the trays inside. I had a plan, and nothing she said could ruin it. As I set the table and arranged the food, Ashley hovered around, giving orders that made no sense. "Make sure the dishes are centered. Oh, and don't put too much sauce. It looks messy," she said, pretending to know what she was talking about. I just nodded and kept working. By the time the guests started arriving, everything looked beautiful. The table was elegant, the food smelled incredible, and the whole room felt warm and welcoming. I stood quietly in the background, watching people's reactions as they entered. They looked impressed, really impressed. When dinner began, the compliments started almost immediately. "This food is amazing," one of Ryan's business partners said. Another asked if I had a restaurant. I smiled and handed them my business card. Soon, people were talking more about the food than about Ashley's decorations. Even Ryan's mother, who was usually polite but distant, came over to me with a warm smile. "You should have hosted Thanksgiving, dear," she said softly. "You have a real gift. Everything tonight is perfect." Her words made me pause for a second. I didn't expect them to mean so much, but they did. I just smiled and thanked her, trying not to show how deeply it touched me. Meanwhile, Ashley's perfect smile began to fade. She was still trying to laugh and make conversation, but it was clear she was uncomfortable. Every time someone complimented the food or asked for my card, I saw her jaw tighten. She wasn't used to being outshined, especially not by me. At one point, I noticed her whispering to Ryan, clearly annoyed. He shrugged and gave her a small smile, probably telling her to let it go. But she couldn't. She needed to be in control, and for once she wasn't. As the evening went on, more guests approached me, asking for catering quotes and details about my business. I answered each question kindly, never bragging, never gloating. My quiet confidence spoke louder than any revenge speech ever could. When the night ended, people thanked me personally for the food. Some even took extra plates home. I packed up my things slowly, feeling calm and proud. Ashley stood by the door, smiling stiffly as she said goodbye to her guests. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't need to prove anything or beg for respect. I had earned it, and she knew it. Her smile cracked just enough to show that deep down, she finally understood. She couldn't keep me in her shadow anymore. Own dinner party would be the start of her lesson, the one she'd never forget. When the last guest left, the house grew quiet. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses faded, leaving only the soft hum of the lights. I was gathering my trays and packing up my leftover dishes when Ashley walked into the kitchen. Her heels clicked sharply against the floor, and I could feel the tension before she even spoke. "You embarrassed me tonight," she said, her voice low but shaking with anger. She stood there with her arms crossed, her eyes narrowed. I stopped what I was doing and looked straight at her. For a moment, we just stood there, two sisters, facing each other without the noise of family or the fake smiles of guests. "No, Ashley," I said quietly, my voice calm but steady. "I just stopped letting you embarrass me." Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. The silence between us was heavy. For years, she had been the one with control, the one who made me feel small, who always had the last word. But not this time. I picked up my box of dishes and turned to leave. She didn't move. She just stared at me, as if she couldn't believe I had finally stood up to her. There was no yelling, no dramatic fight, just the truth sitting there between us, too real for her to deny. I walked out of the kitchen, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of her shadow following me. The air outside felt lighter. The night breeze touched my face, and I took a deep breath. I had faced her, really faced her, and I hadn't fallen apart. As I loaded my things into the car, I thought about all the times I'd stayed silent to keep the peace. The dinners, the insults, the comparisons. I used to believe that being quiet made me strong. Now I knew that true strength wasn't silence. It was standing up when enough was enough. When I glanced back at the house, I saw Ashley standing by the window watching me. Her expression wasn't angry anymore. It was something else, maybe confusion, maybe realization. For once, she saw me not as the little sister she could push around, but as someone who had her own voice, her own life. I didn't wave or say goodbye. I just got in my car and drove away, leaving her and all those years of pain behind. The road ahead looked calm, almost peaceful under the dim streetlight. I knew the distance between us would grow after that night, but I also knew I'd finally found peace. For the first time, I wasn't defined by her approval or her cruelty. I was just me, strong, independent, and free from her game. And as the city lights faded in my rearview mirror, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's a year later. Thanksgiving felt completely different. This time it was at my house, a small but warm home that I bought on my own. The smell of roasted turkey, garlic mashed potatoes, and apple pie filled the air. The table was set with simple plates, candles, and fall leaves I'd picked from the yard. It wasn't fancy like Ashley's dinner had been, but it felt real. It felt like home. Families started arriving one by one: mom, dad, cousins, even Ryan's family. Everyone greeted me with smiles and warm hugs. For the first time, I wasn't sitting in the corner or serving food from the kitchen. I was the host, and everyone was sitting around my table. When Ashley walked in, she was different. Her usual loud, showy attitude was gone. She smiled politely, carrying a pie she'd bought from the store. "Smells amazing in here," she said softly, her voice quieter than I remembered. I smiled back. "Thanks for coming, Ashley. Make yourself comfortable." During dinner, the room was filled with laughter and easy conversation. People complimented the food again and again, and I could feel the warmth of genuine appreciation. Mom looked at me with pride in her eyes. "You did a beautiful job, sweetheart," she said, squeezing my hand. Ashley mostly listened. She wasn't trying to control the table or steer the conversation. Every now and then, our eyes met, and she gave me a small, almost regretful smile. There was no competition between us anymore. I didn't feel angry or bitter, just peaceful. When dinner ended, Ashley helped clear the table. "You've really made something special here," she said quietly. "Your food, your home. It's all perfect." I nodded, my heart calm. "Thank you," I replied. There was nothing else to say. I didn't need an apology, and I didn't need revenge. The silence between us wasn't cold anymore. It was healing. After everyone left, I stood by the window, looking at the empty plates and half-melted candles. A year ago, I had cried in my car, feeling unwanted and humiliated. Tonight, I stood in my own kitchen, surrounded by warmth and gratitude. That night, I realized something important. Peace is louder than revenge. I didn't need to prove anything to Ashley or anyone else. Living my life, building my dream, and finding happiness on my own was the best payback I could ever have. As I washed the last dish, I smiled to myself. I wasn't the quiet sister in the corner anymore. I wasn't the one being pushed aside or made to feel small. I had built a life I was proud of, a life that didn't need to be compared to anyone. Sometimes the best revenge isn't payback. It's peace, and sitting at your own table, surrounded by love, knowing you made it there all by yourself. Reclaiming your dignity and walking away with quiet grace.